I am flying. I mean, it's like a dream. I'm flying through the air, through the grey dawn sky, and everything's gone into slow motion. And I'm thinking, oh God, it's me. This is how I remember stepping on a bomb in Afghanistan 6 years ago. It left me missing 3 limbs, both legs above the knee and my right arm at the elbow. But I was just happy to be alive. So who did this to me then? I don't exactly know, but this guy was probably involved. Mahmoud Saeed. He was the local bomb supplier in our area of operations in Sangin. I'd met him, I took this photograph, but I never had sufficient evidence to arrest him. There was also our underperforming commanding officer. At the time of the incident, I had already written my letter of resignation, citing his total failure in leadership as my reason. I'd intended to hand it to his boss, but I never got the opportunity. So these were the 2 men that I could blame and focus my anger towards. What led me to that moment? Well, it started with inspiration. As a young teenager, meeting a handful of Royal Marines officers who were confident, intelligent, and adventurous, always full of exciting stories and insightful views on the latest news. This is what I aspired to be. But inspiration turned to devastation when, as a 17-year-old, I failed the selection process. I took it as a personal insult. They did not want me. But as I recovered, I realized there was nothing personal about it. I had simply failed to make the grade. So, with determination, I reapplied, taking the opportunity to grow from my failure, better preparing myself, and succeeding. The thing about this career path is that every time you succeed, you just find yourself on an even more challenging journey. Success on apply meant I then had to complete the 12-month Royal Marines Commando Young Officer Training course. The course is far more intense and 50 times longer than the entry assessments. I was just 19. The majority of my peers were between 2 and 6 years older than me, and this was the ultimate alpha male environment. So it was no surprise that I struggled. I seemed to be constantly on the edge of failure. Any talent I thought I had in me just seemed to disappear. But I did have determination, and that just proved enough. I found some talent and I grew, but my regular struggles ensured that that talent grew steadily and my core spirit grew strong. My performance reviews improved and I completed tougher courses. The great thing about my struggles were that they kept me humble, and this really helped me as a leader. You see, I was just 20 years old and in command of 30 Royal Marines between the ages of 17 and 37. They were all specialist drivers, and I was responsible for the 18 vehicles they drove too. I did not have a clue what I was doing, and I knew there was no way of fooling them into thinking that I did. My solution was simple, though. I admitted to them that I was clueless, but showed them I was willing to learn. I would ask anyone for advice, mainly letting my most experienced colleagues lead my judgments, though. What I discovered was that people will work far harder to execute a plan when they are directly involved in the planning, and that success is best when shared. We all benefited equally. One of those men came to visit me when I was in hospital last year. After 12 years of not working with me, he decided to look me up and go out of his way just to say hello. I felt honored, but more so, I felt pride when hearing his story. How, after leaving the Marines, he had had to resort to sweeping a warehouse floor for work. But within that small family-run business, he took every little opportunity, and within 5 years had made it to the highest possible level for a non-family member, and from there was able to successfully apply for a role as a sales director in a different business. He's doing really well now, through humility and determination. So what do you need when you're lying on the desert floor, missing 3 limbs? The first thing you need is faith. Not in a higher being, but in yourself and in the human beings around you. Those beings are far higher than we typically give them credit for. Be under no illusion. I should have died that day. My job was simple at the time. I just had to hold on. Their job, though, that was a different question. A miracle was asked of them, and a miracle they delivered. This episode truly confirmed what I've always suspected, that we massively underestimate humans and the human body. My body allowed me to stay alert, even make jokes, at least for the first 30 minutes after the explosion. Although I have to say, after 40 minutes, when they loaded me onto the evacuation helicopter, I was crying, literally begging to be put to sleep. I felt, when I woke up 3 days later back in the UK, that I only had 2 choices. I could either roll over and die, or I could get up and get on with life. So, with the help of my girlfriend, my family, and my friends, that's exactly what I decided to do. I was discharged from hospital after just 27 nights. 9 weeks post-injury, I was wearing basic prosthetics. By 9 months, I was becoming proficient on prosthetic legs similar to the ones you see me wearing today. And 12 months and 3 days after the explosion, I stopped using a wheelchair. I had goals all the way, just little ones that I could reach. But by that stage, I needed something bigger to set my sights on. I came up with 2 ideas. Firstly, to complete the Devizes to Westminster kayak race, a bucket list event that I had never got round to doing. And secondly, to build my own home. Both felt like big targets. The kayak race is 200 kilometers long and to be done in one go over Easter weekend. I only have one arm intact, and I'd already had a shoulder reconstruction on that, and Bex, who was now my wife and planned to partner me in the race, had never even kayaked before. So the race felt stupidly challenging. Perfect. The house, well, I simply had no experience of building. I just didn't know where to start. Training for the race was disturbed. Happily, Bex fell pregnant. So a good friend and colleague, Lee Waters, jumped in the boat with me with just 6 weeks to go. And we turned up on the race start line, having only completed 190 kilometers total training together. Remember, the race is 200 kilometers long. But we just went for it with a big support crew. And the day went well. After 12 hours, we were on target. But as the evening drew in, our pace slowed drastically. And by midnight, we were informed there was no way we could meet our 8 a.m. cutoff for a critical checkpoint. Anger set in, and we ignored everyone. For the next 8 hours, we increased our pace from 6 kilometers an hour to 9 kilometers an hour, and we scraped in. We finished the race in 28 and a half hours, achieving the impossible dream. We did so by applying the 3 rules of kayaking. Rule 1, keep paddling. Rule 2, keep cool. And rule 3, shit happens. When it does, refer to rule 1. Ladies and gentlemen, those rules have not just got me through that kayaking race, they've got me through my life this far. I simply changed the word paddling for going. Keep going, keep cool, and shit happens. When it does, keep going. The house was a very different challenge. The aim was clear. Build a house that I and my now growing family could live in for the rest of my life. We had the money, we had the budget, we found a plot of land, and with my oldest friend, who was training to be an architect, we designed the house. Over to me to deliver the project then. As I've already said, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing whatsoever. Luckily, I found some support from a couple of big and generous companies, but it was still tough. Quite simply, the most sustained period of stress ever in my life. The budget spiraled, the completion date slipped, and the result was beyond my dreams. Not just in terms of the physical result of the house, yes, it is lovely, but in terms of the confidence the project gave me. It made me realize there was more to me than just being able to keep going through difficult physical challenges or coordinate military maneuvers. You see, I'd actually thought about leaving the Marines before my final tour, but I didn't think I had the necessary skills or education to do it, to make it in the civilian world. I was too afraid. Fear had kept me in this dangerous job. On leaving the Marines, a friend of mine invited me to do some leadership consulting, and I found a new passion. Leadership was the part of my job in the Marines that I got the greatest satisfaction from. And for me, it wasn't about being a skillful communicator or a clever manager. It was simply about caring for my teams and enjoying watching them succeed, just doing my bit to help them along. My passion for this work was also fueled by the anger I mentioned earlier at my former commanding officer, who in my eyes had missed this basic point about leadership. So I set out on a journey to inspire better leadership. My concept is simple: care about your people and dedicate your performance to helping them. But who am I to judge this? I'm just Jon White. No one's ever heard of me. So I decided to write a book as a research project. It's not complete yet, but I've been lucky enough to interview 5 great leaders, including Kofi Annan, 2 4-star generals, and 2 successful business leaders. I'm still looking for 7 more people to interview, by the way. My aim is simple. I want to interview a wide range of leaders and just show regular people what is possible. The first theme to come out of the interviews so far is just how human all of these leaders are. They all have and continue to make mistakes, whether it be in career planning or the execution of their roles. They are human. They do learn from their mistakes, though. The second common theme I want to share with you is their sense of responsibility. All of them have had a shift in motivation over the course of their careers. Whether this be an epiphany at a specific point or an evolution, all of their motivations have shifted from themselves to the people they work for, be it the organization or the customers, or both. In Kofi Annan's case, his customers are the world's population, so he quite literally feels the weight of the world on his shoulders. And that is why now, in his 70s, he's still working hard to make the world a better place. The final common theme I want to share with you from the interviews so far is their optimistic and forgiving nature. All of them are noted for their lack of anger. Most of them have been criticized at times for not sacking people early enough. And this is all down to their power for forgiveness. I'm going to use Admiral Sir George Zambellas's definition for leadership here. He calls it transferred belief. The belief that I want to transfer to you today is the power of forgiveness. I told you how I used my anger at 2 men to fuel my drive initially. And whilst I got a lot done very quickly using this, the issue was that anger was also slowly eating away at me. It was using energy that I needed in other parts of my life. It was stopping me from thinking freely and creatively. And my life just got to a point where it didn't make sense to be angry at them anymore. Being angry at them suggested I wanted my life to be different, that I didn't want my wife, my house, my children, or my newfound passion for my work. So I realized I had to forgive them. And I can tell you now that I hold no resentment against those 2 men whatsoever. In fact, I am actually grateful for what they have done for me. I recently had a further revelation, though. Whilst helping a friend with a personal issue, she wanted to talk to an ex-partner because she felt she had unfinished business in her mind. As we explored what she wanted to achieve by talking to him, forgiveness came up. She wanted to forgive him. I pointed out that if he had not taken responsibility for what had happened, then forgiving him would simply be taken as an accusation. And as we explored further, we realized she actually needed to forgive herself. A tear came to my eye at that moment because the concept resonated with me. I was still partly anchored by my own past. As much as forgiving these men felt good, and it was good, it did release me a great deal, it was not wholly healing. I was still kind of using them as distractions and excuses. To sleep at night, it is only our own conscience that must be clear, no one else's. And this was the moment when I realized that I had to take responsibility for my past. I had to forgive myself and thank myself in order to be happy with myself and live a life that feels meaningful to me. Modsmesk.